Well, hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Be Healthy and Thrive podcast. This is Brianna, Holistic Health and Life Coach, with Hannah, Thyroid and Nutrition Coach. Thanks so much for being here.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited. Everyone, I'm so glad. I know Hannah, and she's the first person on this podcast and that I'm interviewing, so I feel a little bit better. So, Hannah, I just really wanted to, when I started to think about nutrition and who to feature, like your name was like the first thing that popped into my head, just because we're both very similar in how we really try to approach it from a whole food point of view and reducing our exposure to preservatives, toxins, and all these stuff that just exists in today's world.
Yes.
And I know you have a story around that, just how the reason what kind of led you to be a thyroid and nutrition coach was also your personal story in this area. So do you want to share your story with us a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. So my story kind of started about 6 years ago, and my whole life I've dealt with minor to severe eczema, and so that, just like little patches on my arms or my neck, and it wasn't really anything too bad, but about 5 years ago it just like blew up all over my body. And like now when I think back and I tell people, oh, I had eczema, I feel like sometimes it can sound, oh, that wasn't too big of a deal. But if you would have seen me, like if I had taken pictures, it was like I was just covered. It looked like poison ivy all over my body, and it wouldn't go away. And so what was happening was this autoimmune response in my body where my skin was essentially attacking itself. Mm-hmm. And that was leading to chronic fatigue, adrenal fatigue, hormonal imbalance, very low immune system. Like I was sick all the time. And I was teaching elementary school at the time. So I was just catching like everything from the kids. Yeah. It was a really, really bad environment to be in, dealing with that physical problem. So when that was happening, I realized I kind of hit my breaking point when my whole body was inflamed with this, and I was feeling awful, and the things that used to work, like I kind of tried to give up dairy, tried to give up gluten, tried to kind of do things here and there, but they weren't getting me the results that I needed. So I started researching toxins and what it meant to really detoxify and what the effects were that toxins had on our system, on our bodies. And what I found was that was really the root cause of my skin issues. Was my body was just so loaded down with toxins and malnourished at the same time. And that was a combination that was just creating this massive autoimmune response and toxicity in my body that was causing all of these problems. So I started learning how to minimize my toxic exposure, how to fuel up on foods that were going to nourish my skin and my body from the inside out, and how to build up my defenses to process toxins, because obviously I couldn't go live in a bubble somewhere, although I kind of felt like I wanted to at the time. But I had to live in the real world, and so I had to figure out a way to strengthen my body and strengthen my detox pathways so they could process those toxins and not harm my health further. So long story short, within about 8 months of changing my diet and switching my environment to healthy alternatives, my skin started clearing up. And at like that 1 year mark, it was almost 1 year to a T. It was like November to November. My skin was 100% cleared. Wow. Just like I didn't take pictures because I was honestly too ashamed of what it looked like, and it just compounded the problem to see it. So I would cover it up all the time. So to take a picture would have been really traumatic for me. But now I wish I had them, because to see the before and after, it was just it was an incredible change. So my skin cleared up, my energy was soaring, and really my energy started coming back really early on in the process. It took a long time for my skin to heal, but my energy was coming back within like 3 months, maybe even less. of switching to a healthier diet. So, and then my adrenal fatigue cleared up, my immune system got incredibly strong. There was, the next year I was teaching and I didn't take a single sick day the entire year, which is just unheard of. My kids were getting sick all the time in the classroom, and I never got sick. I took a mental health day, but I didn't take any sick days from school. So that was also just a huge testament to what was happening. And ever since then, so it's been 5 years since then, and my eczema has never come back. And every doctor says eczema is incurable. They say, you just manage it through creams and whatnot, but that has not been the case for me. It's been completely cleared up because I addressed that root cause. So anyway, after all that, I decided I wanted to help other women overcome these chronic health issues in their lives, because like for me, I just felt so defeated because it felt like I was just going to have to deal with this the rest of my life. And I had kind of just accepted that. I mean, I wasn't happy about it, but I was like, okay, I'm just going to be suffering with this. And, I didn't want to spend time with friends. I didn't want to go out in public. I didn't want to use a lot of the gifts that I knew I had because I didn't feel well. I never knew how my body was going to feel on a given day. So it was hard to commit to plans in the future. And I think that there's a lot of women right now dealing with chronic disease. Right now, I work with women with thyroid disease, and that's a huge thing is they don't know, they may make plans for tomorrow, but then tomorrow comes and they just feel terrible and have to stay in bed all day, or people with digestion issues that have to stay close to a bathroom all the time. There's just so many things that that are really like holding us captive and we think there's not a solution, but there really is. And so learning how to detoxify our bodies sustainably, not crash detoxes, but daily, minimizing that exposure and nourishing ourselves through whole food. That is really the answer. And it sounds, that's easier said than done. It takes a lot of work and commitment, but, so anyway, I just kind of became passionate about helping people with that chronic disease and have centered in on thyroid disease. And that's kind of where I am now.
Wow. I think we're done right there. So I think there's so many great things you said, and some of them around just something as simple, yet actually not, as eczema, where you're right. Yes. Most people think that anything skin related that we've had for a long time is we just need to deal with it. We just got to get through life and like survive, versus like really understanding what's happening and actually saying we can live a thriving and healthy life without that thing. And, one thing I love that you also said is that it takes time and it takes intentionality and it takes consistency, right? Just consistently going to those things. And I think you're giving hope to so many other people listening right now, knowing that they don't have to struggle with eczema. Their children or babies don't,
Yes.
Really there's so many amazing things you said. And one thing I really loved, the two main things I really thought was that we could kind of expound upon was just food and toxins, and just how often in my experience, even doing something like the Whole30 where I'm eating more whole foods, that's not it. I can't just stop there. I actually have to also look at what I'm putting on my body and what I'm exposing myself to, right? So that's why I've even gotten into essential oils. So I really, I think you kind of laid the case for this, but what are some of the effects toxins can actually have on our health? Well, you kind of shared how it had on yours, but what are some of the other things that could be happening?
Yes. So when you hear the word toxins, like I feel like people kind of run and hide because it can be an extreme topic. Sometimes people are too afraid of them, and so we're kind of turned off to the whole idea of detoxifying, or maybe we're conditioned to think of those crash cleanses that, you just fast for a week or something like that. And that's not at all what I'm talking about. And I think that it's important to talk about the reality of toxins because it affects all of us. It's not just for people that are super healthy or extremely healthy. it's something that we all deal with, and to just ignore it is becoming detrimental to our health. And so, yeah, I mean, there's multiple places that toxins come from. I'll just name a few. Our food supply is loaded with a lot of them. Pesticides and herbicides and fungicides are on most of our food. That's why it's important to choose organic as much as possible. And thankfully, like, a lot of the mainstream stores now are carrying relatively inexpensive organic produce. And I don't know, I live in Indiana, and it's really easy for me to just run to the grocery store 5 minutes away and get organic food. So it used to be where you kind of had to seek it out or go to a health food store for it, but now it's more widely available. So choosing organic food is important. If price is a concern, then the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen is a great resource where you can choose. The Clean 15 is the produce that has lower levels of pesticides. So maybe you could get conventional, like avocados, for instance, are lower on that. So sometimes if I'm trying to save a little bit of money, I'll get conventional avocados rather than organic. And then the Dirty Dozen, you would want to make sure that those would be the top priority for organic produce. So that's a huge one, buying organic versus not organic. But then in addition to that, so much of what we're eating is processed, right? It's in packaged foods and canned, and it's frozen. We're reheating it in the microwave. We're getting it from drive-thrus, even from healthier restaurants. There's preservatives in them. There's artificial colors, artificial flavors, things you wouldn't even expect. Like I was reading the other day, like, even like apples are being artificially colored and waxed to look fresher longer, which you think you can trust produce, but that's not always the case. So especially packaged items and processed items, it's so important to look at the labels on that, because those preservatives, those artificial colors and flavors, those are neurotoxins at times. They're contributing to a lot of health problems that and I think that's something that we overlook, is we forget that the food that we're eating is housing a lot of those toxins.
Yeah. So yeah, I think one of the things too is understanding that if you can't get the organic, because sometimes it's much, but the Clean 15 or Dirty Dozen, or even like, so say for me, if I buy regular apples, one thing that we've tried to do is take lemon essential oil, which is very powerful at detoxing, right? And just wash it. And it's amazing to do the before and after. I'm like, this literally feels like wax is on my apple, and it's like, oh, wow, I was putting that into my body, So I think what you're saying is really important, is like, try as much as you can, but when you can't, go to local, go to the Clean 15 and so forth. And then process and package. I want to talk a little bit more about that. So you said switching your food. So you kind of moving away from processed and packaged foods to eating more whole foods. Like, what does that actually look like? And how can people start doing that?
Yes, that's such a good question. And something you said before, just about gradually getting into it, because I think, I've had like 5 years of this. So, I have to go back and remember what it was like to make that transition. And it was overwhelming. And I think that if I could go back in time and tell myself one thing, it would be like, don't worry about doing it all overnight, because I ended up stressing myself out more over it. And that was more harmful. Yeah, that was worse for my health than if I would have just said, it's okay. Like, eat the packaged food today and make a better choice tomorrow, and so I guess the first thing I would say, if you're trying to make that transition, is to not expect perfection overnight, and don't beat yourself up if you don't want to spend the money on all organic produce, or can't make all your meals from scratch. Every small step you take toward reducing your toxic load in your food and your environment is doing wonders for your health. And it's going to take baby steps. It's going to take mastering one habit before you move on to the other. So I guess for me, because I was, I grew up on macaroni and cheese and Hamburger Helper and Hot Pockets, and we would make a home cooked food too, but just like any American family or any, through college, I was eating in the cafeteria and trying to eat as healthy as possible, but it was difficult. So once I got out of college and was able to start choosing my own food, then I focused on adding things in rather than taking things out. And I found that really helped, because instead of looking in my refrigerator and saying, I just have to get rid of everything and start over, that was overwhelming. And that seemed really wasteful to me. Because my husband and I were newly married. Like, we didn't have a ton of money to just start completely over. We had to do it gradually. So the very first thing I did was start adding an organic salad every day. So I would add like organic spinach in, and I was eating like Oreos in the afternoon and spinach in the morning, like it was a gradual thing where some things I was eating was really healthy, some things weren't. And that was okay. That's what I needed to make that gradual shift. So I would encourage people, if you are, if you're eating a typical diet of processed food, is maybe choose one meal of the day to focus on first. So a really easy meal is breakfast. You can swap something out for a smoothie or drink a smoothie first, and then if you need something heavier, have something after that. So just focusing on one meal of the day rather than overhauling everything can do wonders to kind of simplify that for you.
Yeah. And I think you just hit the nail on it. Same here. I think often people look at, especially health coaches now, and look at our diet now, and they're like, I can never be like you. I'm like, it took me 5 years to get here, and what it's specifically for me as well is that I've tried all those intense times where we're like, I'm just going to cut it all out for the rest of my life. And it's never ended well. And so when I started to gradually make shifts, even after being introduced to like paleo and Whole30, the whole foods approach, I was like, I'm going to test this out and do it gradually to see if it works for me, because I've been told everything is the right way. But then learning about it as well and saying I can actually eat well and it be enjoyable and fun. But I had to kind of learn that over time. And you're right, it started with one meal, because I would have cereal every morning, regular stuff, and then maybe a salad at lunch. And then I'm like, maybe let me switch my cereal into eggs or whatever, right? And so, and then now over time, and even now, I'm testing the zone a little bit, which is really focusing on specific macronutrients. Before I would have been like, no way. That is very restrictive. But now I'm like, actually, it works better for me, so it's just kind of allowing yourself to experiment and go on a journey rather than expect perfection right away, and
absolutely.
And even with like our business, I'm just going to say this, we have to do the same thing, because I'm like, it has to be perfect.
Right.
I'm like,
totally.
Gradual. All right. So so then so you said it's showing up in our food supply. It's showing up in processed and packaged food, but what about actually in our environment? So ranging from, the places we go to the products we use, where do you see toxins showing up the most there?
Yes. So one of the, especially as women, the one that I see coming up the most is in artificial fragrances. And I feel like that is the hardest one for people to get rid of. And I understand that, because scents, triggers that, like, they trigger memories, there's so much emotional, there's an emotional component around things that we smell, and like candles or perfume or body lotions or air fresheners. And so I see that just huge in women, and especially working with thyroid disease. When you, for instance, if you spray perfume on your wrist or your neck, which is a typical place to put them, that's getting absorbed. That's like a main absorbing point in your body. And so I think that's something that maybe is not widely known, that when you put something on your skin's your largest organ in your body. So you're absorbing all of that, and you're absorbing it rapidly, even more than you would when you're ingesting something. So to spray artificial fragrances on our bodies, that's going in our bodies, and they're major endocrine disruptors. So your thyroid's on your endocrine system, like your adrenals, and it's disrupting it. That's the technical name is an endocrine disruptor, and it's disrupting your endocrine system. So it's contributing to thyroid imbalance and adrenal fatigue and migraines, headaches. There's so many things that this is affecting. And so, and if you think about it, if you spray perfume on yourself, not only are you absorbing it through your skin, but you're absorbing it through your lungs all day long. You're just breathing that chemical all day long. And then a lot of people have air fresheners in cars. And so you get in your car, you're breathing it. Maybe you have a candle, an artificial candle lit in your house. You're breathing that throughout the day. Laundry detergent is on your clothes. You're breathing that. And so not to overwhelm people or to, use a scare tactic or anything, but they are everywhere. And it is doing harm. And I think it's like a hidden threat to our health, because we think, oh, it doesn't matter, I'm not going to think about it, everybody uses these, it's mainstream. But it wasn't mainstream several years ago. We didn't have all this stuff, so back when the air was cleaner. And now they are mainstream, but so are these health problems, So if you look at the link
very good point.
between this, it's like, okay, it may be working, but is it really working? Is our health as good as it can be? Or are there problems that are hindering our lives and our health? So, I would say artificial fragrances. And then along with that, that's a big one for women, is skincare products. So, facial cleansers, facial lotions, makeup. I read somewhere that like lipstick is one of the worst. There's like lead and mercury and a lot of mainstream cosmetics. And when you put that on your lips, you're swallowing that. You're getting that when you lick your lips. You're ingesting it, whether, in small amounts, but if you wear it every day over time, that's accumulating to a lot of toxic exposure in your body. So, but the great thing is that there are alternatives to all of these things, and alternatives that work. So I think it was maybe 7 or 8 years ago when I started looking into switching my makeup, because I was using mainstream makeup, and it was really hard to make that switch. And back then, even just, a decade ago, there really weren't that many options for makeup. Like it was sticky, or it was like a really ugly, bright color that, just didn't look quite right. But now there's so many awesome natural makeup lines and skincare lines, and even fragrances like essential oils that you can use to replace those, that you don't have to do without these things. You just want to upgrade to natural versions that aren't harming your health. So I think that's a big one, is that you don't have to get rid of your favorite things. You just need to find new favorite things that are contributing to your well-being.
I know on your website you have some examples of some of the products you really recommend. What is one of each of those things that you would recommend?
Sure.
Fragrances and then skincare products.
Okay. For makeup, I love Sally B's Skin Yummies. I love their brand. Yeah, I love their. I don't have any of the makeup on right now, but I love their like lipstick, and they like blush. They have powder and foundation, and as well as some facial cleansers and things like that. So yeah, Sally B's Skin Yummies is great. I haven't used Beauty Counter, but a lot of people that I trust really advocate for that. So I feel like I should maybe try that before I recommend it, but I trust the people that have recommended it. So I feel like I can suggest that one. And then let's see, for artificial fragrances, essential oils there's really no substitute for that. You can get anything. I use it. I just had my diffuser going, so that's what I use as an air freshener. For like, I'm trying to think of other things you would want to fragrance, like lotions. You can put essential oils in there. A car air freshener, you can use a little diffuser in there. Anytime anytime you need a fragrance, the essential oils do it, and they double as, not only are they not harmful for you, but they actually contribute.
Right.
They're medicinal, you know? So it's like, woohoo, why, like, this is amazing. Like, why would you not make the switch to that?
Awesome. Or, I have a question around essential oils too. Obviously, you know, I love them.
Yes.
Because there are a lot of even oils out there that are just kind of on the market that are saying that they're completely pure, but then maybe you smell it and it says you can't smell it or put it on your skin, but you can take it internally, like all these things. So how did you go about deciding which oils you wanted to use, even for the fragrance part of it?
Yeah, that's a great question, because you're right. I think now that there's a little bit of an essential oil craze and fad going on, and so stores are picking up on that, and they're selling them, and they're being labeled as 100% pure, 100% therapeutic, when really, if you were to call the manufacturer, they would have to tell you that there are synthetic chemicals in there. So for me, I like doTERRA and Young Living. I feel like, I know there are other good quality brands that I haven't really used myself, but those are kind of the main ones right now. And I definitely trust both of those. I feel back when I was in high school, like 15 years ago, my mom started using them, and this was before anybody knew about them. Nobody knew about essential oils, and I thought she was a little bit crazy at first, you know, like she's like, here, put these in your bath water, and I was like, oils, this is nuts. But you know, back then she was using them, and then so I started using them for especially for illness, so like when I had the flu or things like that, and was seeing just amazing results. I mean, I wasn't using antibiotics anymore, and I was using oregano oil instead, or cinnamon or clove. And so trusting those brands that have been around for a long time, and that I mean, what I like about both of those brands is that they let you in on how they make the oils. They're very transparent about that. Mainstream, or, you know, oils that you would see even in health food stores, there's a ton that are not good. And I don't buy those. They're a lot cheaper, but they're either diluted, so they're not having that therapeutic effect, or there are things added to it that aren't in the label. So I would say finding a company that is very open and transparent about how they manufacture their oils is huge. And just finding reputable sources to, you know, people that you trust to tell you which ones are good and which ones are harmful or ineffective was just a big thing for me. So trusting those brands that do that, and you know, and really the proof is in the pudding. Like, I've tried the cheaper ones when I was trying to save money, and they did nothing, you know, and these other ones, like it's like night and day. Like, I actually, yesterday I was coming down with a cold. I was around some kids that were sick from school starting, and so I started doing some oregano oil last night, and I'm not kidding. Like, I feel great today. Like, it's just like an instant thing. It's crazy how quickly that can work when you get on top of it right away. Right. So I feel like the proof is in the pudding.
Oh, wow. I mean, I could talk about that forever.
Yes, and I'm sure you could talk more about essential oils.
I would like, let's stay on track. I might have another podcast just on that. So
yes.
But definitely I use doTERRA, and just the same thing where they source their oils is another big thing, and how they care for the people who source the oils. And so it's a whole thing that I kind of, you know, I think you should look at when you're going with any company for anything, actually.
Yes.
Like, where you buy your makeup, like what are their, you know, fair trade chocolate, all those sort of stuff, right? So looking at the quality as well as the company as a whole, because it says a lot about the quality when you look at the company, right?
Absolutely. That's so true. Yeah. They're not trying to just make a profit. They're trying to make a quality item, and, like you said, care for the people that are involved in the manufacturing and all that. Yeah.
Oh, wow. We said so much great stuff. So how, I guess too, just what are the actual effects of having these toxins?
Yes.
Because I also kind of wanted to, even you could kind of share with that how you went to being a thyroid coach with that. Just what does the toxins actually do to our bodies? What can it do? I mean, even if it's not doing it right now, what can it lead to? And then what kind of led you to then also focus on thyroid for women?
That's so good. Oh man, I love both of those questions so much. Okay, so what can toxins do? Yes, that's such an important question. So I'll start with for me personally, what toxins were doing for me is they were accumulating in my body through the skincare I was using and the food that I was eating. And your liver is your main detoxification organ. So everything it's like it passes through your liver, and your liver is like, we don't want you, let's clean this, or it gets stuck there. And what was happening is I had so many, over 20 some years of using these things, I had so many toxins that my liver couldn't process it. And when your liver becomes congested, for me, it came out in my skin. So my body was trying to get rid of these toxins. And so it was erupting, and that's huge. I mean, in acne and eczema and, any skin eruption, it's really, it's something going on the inside of your body that's the problem. And so, so for me, it was coming out as skin problems, and that's a huge one. So if you have a skin problem, you have a liver problem. It's just, it goes hand in hand, or you have a toxin problem, and there's, you can fix it. So it's not just something that you have to live with. But, so skin issues is a big one. Depression can be a big one as well, because, it affects your mind and your brain and your emotions. A big one, especially working with thyroid disease, that I see is hormonal imbalance of any kind. Majorly affects your hormones. And you think of like the Axe body spray commercial. I mean, they're marketing that affects like your pheromones, your hormones, like it does, and it harms it, and it can throw it off balance. Let's see. It can also, toxins are stored. Your body's trying to protect you from that toxin, so it's going to store it in a fat cell, because then it's protected and it's contained. And so that can be a reason why when women are trying to lose weight and they're trying to exercise it away, and it's not an exercise, it's not a metabolism thing, it's that you have all these toxins that are being protected in fat cells that really need to get in there and clean those toxins out, and then those fat cells will no longer need to be there. So that's a big one. Just fatigue, digestion issues, of course, that's going to be a big one. If your body's loaded with toxins, then your gut health. I could talk for an hour about gut health as well, forever and ever. Yes, it's all about the gut health, truly. And toxins are directly related to that. If toxins are in your system, your gut flora, your probiotic flora is going to be off balance. It's going to lead to constipation or diarrhea or both, or bloating, all the fun digestive stuff that nobody likes to talk about, but so many people experience. And by detoxifying your lifestyle, those I've seen a lot of women clear those up through eating a cleaner diet as well. So the sky's the limit really on what toxins can. Then eventually, that can lead to more serious diseases like cancer and immune system problems. Autoimmune diseases are huge for this. One thing with autoimmune is when a toxin enters your system, your body views that as an invader. And so it's seeing it like a germ, or, like something that it would need to attack, but it's not a germ, it's a toxin. So if you're constantly bombarding your body with toxins, and it's always on that hyper alert attacking mode, which leads to chronic inflammation. Acute inflammation is good. Like if you have a virus, you want your body attacking that virus, but you don't want it constantly attacking things, because then your body never cools down. So that can lead to, inflammation is also a root of so many things like arthritis and colitis. Hundreds and hundreds of things as well. So, yeah,
like
so many things.
I'm just like, keep talking about this.
I know. I'm just so passionate about this. And I wouldn't have been had I not seen, I mean, it was the answer. Like I wasn't in a life-threatening disease, but in a lot of ways I was, because it was taking my parts of my life. You know, I was alive. There wasn't necessarily a threat of me dying, but I was not living an abundant, thriving life in any way, shape, or form. I mean, I was led by fear and anxiety and misery, really. And so discovering these things essentially gave those parts of my life back. So at the risk of sounding dramatic, I really believe in that. Yeah.
I love it, because it's almost like kind of what this show too is about. Like, you went from fearing and anxiety to be healthy, and you're thriving, like, by doing this process. So kind of like, even as we wrap up, I just wanted to know, is there, some steps or some tips that you have for people, and how they can start to build up their immune system, and how they can start to get rid of toxins, just in a very, in a very basic way? And I know you have your gift, that if that is the answer, then you can talk about that as well. Just so as people leave and they don't feel like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do?
I know.
Just give them some encouragement and hope in this time.
Okay, that's good, because when I was reading books on detoxing and listening to things, I would leave feeling just depressed, because it was like, I'm never going to be able to afford all of these things. I'm never going to be able to switch all these things. I'm too tired to make the healthy food. And it was just kind of this doom and gloom, like, oh, we can never avoid these toxins. So yes, I feel like the information needs to be out there that this is a major problem, but I definitely don't want to leave people with that just like feeling of defeat, like they can't overcome that. So yes, I would say, think of the products that you use every single day. So for me, like, I was using foundation on my skin every single day. So that was one of the things I decided to switch, was I found a natural foundation for my makeup line. Another thing that I was using every day was soap. So that's something that, we put on our hands and our bodies every day. So switching from mainstream soap, like synthetically fragranced soap, to a natural version. I like Dr. Bronner's. I love that soap. I use the bar soap and the liquid castor soap, just really, really good stuff. So switching my soap. So, I mean, for you, think about what is a product that you use either on your skin or in your household every day, and just switch that, just start. Another thing I always say is wait till something runs out. This was my strategy, was when my toothpaste ran out, instead of going back and getting the same version, I said, okay, let's find an alternative to this. And then when my laundry detergent ran out, then instead of going and buying fragrance laundry detergent, I got a natural version. So that way you're not just like throwing things away and having to buy all new things, because that is extremely expensive. Just slowly, as you run out of something, get something better the next time is a big one.
Awesome. And what about, like, I know you mentioned the crowding out method of adding in food and then crowding out others. What about in regards to food? If you had to say, for people to change their nutrition in one way today, one simple way, what would that be?
That's a great question. I would say overhaul one meal. Just think of one meal that you can eat, just ideally all whole foods. So maybe it's lunch. Maybe you're gonna think instead of buying taking a frozen meal and heating it up in the microwave, I'm going to pack my own lunch and try to do that with all whole foods. And that's a conversation for another day, like what is whole food and what all does that entail?
Part two. Yeah.
Part two, yes. But I mean, just one way I like to think of whole food is it's food that hasn't been messed with, right? It's food that nothing's been added to it, nothing's been stripped away from it. It's food like it came out of the ground or came off of the tree. It's as close to the source as possible. So maybe think of one meal that you can make with all whole food ingredients. And there's Pinterest has a ton. There's a lot of resources where you can look for whole whole food recipes and start building up your confidence. And like you had mentioned earlier, is start finding joy in this, because it should never feel restrictive. And I never feel restricted in what I'm eating. The only time maybe is like if I'm at a wedding and I have, I have to bring my own food or something like that. Like then I maybe feel like, oh man, I wish I could just eat what's here. But as far as my daily life, I feel like I have all the foods I could ever want. So I think finding a way to make it joyful for you, is the only way to make it sustainable, because it's not, if you feel like it's a diet or something that, or a bunch of rules, then you're never going to stick with it. So finding a way to just build your confidence up in the kitchen and find joy around preparing those and realizing that they can be really delicious, I think is a great first step.
Love it. Build your confidence up in the kitchen.
Yes.
And
everybody can cook.
I know, right? And I think you and I both have maybe some free recipe guides too that people could look at. So if
yes.
I know you have actually a beautiful set that people could purchase for a small amount that you put together, because we didn't mention this, but you had your own meal.
Yes, delivery service. Yes, that's true. On my website, I had a business called Bee and Lemon, which was really fun. It was a lot of work, so I had to cut it out to do the thyroid coaching, but it was wonderful. My earbud keeps coming out. It was wonderful to do. I like just providing that whole food for people, and I put all those recipes in an ebook. So that is on my website. If you're stuck, I think it's like $20 right now. So.
So we both have many recipes if you guys are interested. So as we kind of wrap up, could you maybe just share a little bit about what you kind of do as a thyroid coach, and then the giveaway that you have for everybody to comment on?
Yes, I would love to. So as a thyroid coach, I work with women who have been diagnosed with a thyroid disease. So it could be hypothyroid or hyperthyroid, Hashimoto's, Graves' disease. Those are all under the umbrella of that. So either women that have been diagnosed or women that suspect they're showing symptoms, because a lot of times, I've seen this in like 80% of the people I work with, is their lab work is coming back normal, but they have all of the symptoms. And there's a lot of reasons for that. On my website, I have a whole blog post about why that can be happening, why you can have thyroid disease, but it's not showing up on lab work. So I work with a lot of people that actually have never been diagnosed, but they're just pretty sure that they have it. And most of the times they're right, and they will get diagnosed later on down the road. So we try to stop that, prevent that before they have to be put on medication or deal with those symptoms in a more severe way. So I work with women with those issues, with those health concerns, with that thyroid imbalance, and we work toward balancing their thyroid naturally through the food that they're eating and through the environment. So kind of like what we've been talking about today, we talk about how to clean up their environment and how to get on a targeted nutrition plan to nourish their thyroid and contribute to healing. And it's definitely been incredible to see this happening. 3 months is about the kind of the average time frame that I'm seeing for women going from having these symptoms to clearing them up. Some sooner, some clear up some symptoms sooner, but 3 months is a good time frame for your body to really adjust to that new lifestyle and start seeing the fruit of your labors. So yes, that's what I do now. And I absolutely just love that niche. There's so many women struggling with that. And I love seeing them get their energy back and get their life back in so many ways. So I have an 8-week one-on-one coaching program where we go through all the components of the diet and the lifestyle and just support you through that. So, and then I also have a freebie. If you're just wanting to kind of see what this is all about, I have a freebie called the 5-Pillar Guide to Balancing Your Thyroid. And this is essentially the 5 things that I work with my clients on to balance their thyroid. And this just kind of gives you a snapshot as well as some examples in each category that you can get started on today. So it's a great starting point if you have thyroid disease and you're looking for a way to handle it naturally.
Amazing. Thank you so much. This was so great. I wrote so many notes. I'm ready to.
Awesome.
So I think we have so much to really say on this, to really kind of give, you know, the people listening just a very holistic approach to, you know, nutrition, saying it's not just about the food, it's how we're nourishing our entire bodies, right? So, you know, we're doing it more naturally with oils or our soaps, and how can we most importantly reduce our toxic load. And by doing that, we will fix a lot of things inadvertently, right? So thank you so much for joining. You will definitely be on again, because I just
I feel like we can talk for like 3 more hours.
I know. We would have to do a couple other episodes though, because
please
listen, an intensive or something like that. But
yes.
All right. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great one. And yes, everyone listening, I'll be sure to put the links for all of the things that Hannah talked about today. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.